Have you ever felt like your mind never shuts off? Too many thoughts, repeating worries, scenes that replay without being invited. You try to relax, but something inside keeps racing. Your body asks for rest, but your mind won't obey. Overthinking seems useful, but it's like spinning in a wheel and getting nowhere. You get tired, but don't move forward. And the worst part is that we get used to this internal noise, thinking it's normal to live like this. But what if it's not? What if there's a lighter way to exist within yourself? Stoicism doesn't teach you to silence your mind. It teaches you to make space for what matters, to discern what deserves your attention and what needs to be released. Because clarity doesn't come from effort. Clarity comes from presence. In this video, you'll learn 10 simple strategies to detox your mind and stop overthinking. No magic formulas, just awareness and practice. Before we begin, leave a comment. Today I choose clarity, calm, and balance. Because sometimes, what you need most isn't to think better. It's to think less. But before we dive into the lessons, listen carefully to this story. It will help you understand in a simple and deep way the power of letting go of the mental clutter. In a village at the foot of the hills, there lived a young man named Elias. He was known for his sharp mind, always with a quick answer, always predicting outcomes, always analyzing everything around him. But inside, he was exhausted. Elias thought so much that he forgot how to feel. Before sleeping, he would replay the day in detail. Upon waking, he was already calculating possible mistakes. He carried the weight of 1,000 worries in his mind, as if thinking more could protect him from everything. One day, the village elder, an old craftsman of silence, invited him for a walk to the top of the hills. They walked in silence. From above, looking over the valley, the old man said, "Look at this field. It only blooms after winter. The land needs to pause before it can bear fruit. So does the mind." Elias remained silent. For the first time, with no response. The old man continued, "Thinking is necessary. But overthinking is like digging wells where there's no thirst. You don't need to predict everything. You just need to be present." That day, Elias didn't come down the hills wiser. But he came down lighter, with fewer certainties, and more space inside himself. Number 1. Choose carefully where you place your attention. Have you ever felt like you were being dragged around by your own mind? Like a boat adrift in the open sea. No rudder, no direction. Completely at the mercy of the waves of thought? They come out of nowhere, multiply, get tangled up, and the more you try to quiet them, the louder they seem to scream. It's a constant internal noise, an invisible pressure that drains you, even when everything around you is quiet. What most people don't realize, because no one ever taught us, is that the problem isn't having too many thoughts. The problem is giving them too much attention. Overthinking is just a symptom of an untamed focus. The mind is like a wild horse. If you let it run loose, it'll take you to places you'd never choose to go. But if you learn how to guide it, you can travel through even the hardest landscapes with strength and clarity. You don't need to fight your thoughts to have peace. You just need to learn how to redirect your attention. Epicteto wrote, "No person is free unless they are the master of themselves." And becoming your own master starts here, by becoming the guardian of your attention. Imagine your mind as a house full of windows. At each window, a different scene appears, a painful memory, a future worry, a judgment, a comparison, a desire. You can't stop these images from showing up, but you can choose which ones to look at, and for how long. And if you want, you can close some windows too. Inner freedom doesn't mean having no thoughts. It means not being ruled by them. The moment you realize you don't have to give an audience to every passing thought, something shifts inside you. The mind begins to calm down. not because it went blank, but because you stopped feeding it with what harms you. And when you catch yourself sinking into repetitive thoughts, take a deep breath. Feel your body. Look around. Notice the ground beneath your feet. Bring your attention back to the now. Life doesn't happen in the what-ifs or in the should-have-beens. Life happens in what you do with the present moment. And the present can only be accessed through attention. Here's a simple practice. Every time an intrusive thought shows up, ask yourself, is this thought serving me or sabotaging me? If it serves you, observe it with kindness. If it sabotages you, let it go. Don't fight it. Just say, you're not useful to me right now. Then focus on something real, a book, your breath, a small task. Over time, this becomes a habit. The mind becomes trained. The thoughts lose their power. You gain lightness. Mastering your attention is the first step to detox your mind. And the best part is, this power is already within you. You just need to remember it, again and again, until it becomes second nature. Number 2, the quality of your thoughts shapes what you feel. Have you ever stopped to listen to the tone of the voices inside your head? Are they calming you down or tearing you apart? When everything around you goes quiet, what does your mind whisper? That's the most honest moment in your relationship with yourself. Because it's then that you realize if you're truly living in peace or just pretending to be balanced. The truth is simple. Your thoughts shape the world you see, and the world you see shapes what you feel. A chaotic mind creates a chaotic life. Even if, on the outside, everything seems to be in order. You might have stability, comfort, success. But if the thoughts inside you are dark, your soul will feel like it's trapped in a winter that never ends. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." In practice, this means that thinking clearly is just as essential as breathing. And filling your mind with fear, comparison, and judgment is like slowly poisoning yourself, one drop at a time. The problem? We get used to it. We wake up already worried. We go to bed already exhausted. We constantly think about what could go wrong, what's missing, what others have that we don't. That noise becomes the background sound of your life. It never stops. It convinces you that you're always behind, always falling short, never enough. But there is a way out. And it starts with one simple, yet revolutionary act. Start observing your thoughts. Not to control every one of them, that would be impossible. But to choose which ones you allow in, which ones you sit at the table with, and which ones you simply let pass. The quality of your thoughts is like the air you breathe. Even though it's invisible, it affects you all the time. If it's polluted, your clarity fades. But if it's clean, your mind breathes, and your soul lights up. Want a practical example? When something goes wrong, you could think, "This always happens to me." And that thought drags you into a loop of frustration. But you could also think, "That was uncomfortable, but maybe it's a chance to respond differently." And that changes everything. Your body reacts with different energy. You're not denying the pain, but you're not surrendering to it either. You're choosing a thought that supports your presence. That's where Stoicism shows its strength. It's not about being cold or emotionless. It's about being selective with what you allow inside. Your mind is not a dumping ground for emotional trash. It's a temple. And the more you clean this temple, the more you realize how heavy it was to carry what was never yours. So, if you want to stop overthinking, start by cleaning up the quality of your thoughts. Write, observe, reflect. Replace internal words like failure, guilt, shame with learning, responsibility, growth, not as an escape, but as a form of rebuilding. Because every emotion is born from a thought, and every thought is a choice. From today on, choose more calmly, with more compassion, with more honesty about who you truly want to become. Your peace doesn't depend on silencing your mind. It depends on the harmony of what you choose to nurture inside it. Number 3. What affects you only affects you because you agree with it. Have you ever had your whole day ruined by just one harsh word? A strange look, a passive-aggressive comment, a misunderstood gesture? Suddenly, your heart races, your mind spirals, and everything inside feels heavy and dark. But what if I told you that most of the things that hurt you only have that power because, on some level, you allowed them to? Epictetus once wrote, "Man is not disturbed by things, but by the view he takes of them." This is one of the toughest and most liberating lessons of Stoicism. You don't suffer because of what happens. You suffer because of the story you create about what happens. That doesn't mean denying your feelings or turning into stone. It means recognizing that there's a space, even a small one, between what happens and how you respond. And that space is where your freedom lives. What you do with that space determines whether your day stays light, or if it gets dragged down by something that may not have even deserved that much weight. Have you noticed how the same situation can cause completely different reactions in different people? A criticism might paralyze one person, but it might motivate another. A breakup might destroy someone, but it could set someone else free. The event is the same. What changes is the lens. It's the story each person tells themselves. Now here's the raw truth. If you're constantly getting hurt, it's because there are open wounds inside you. Insecurities that, often unconsciously, are looking for proof of your worth. A lack of reply becomes rejection. A delay feels like neglect. Silence becomes abandonment. But that's not always the truth. It has more to do with how you've learned to see yourself. Mental detox begins with letting go of the need to treat every feeling as absolute truth. Not every thought is reliable. Not every emotion is fair. And not every pain is proportional to its cause. Next time something gets under your skin, try this. Pause and ask yourself, is this situation really serious, or is my interpretation making it unbearable? That one question can be the antidote to an emotional avalanche, and it applies to everything, even arguments. How many times have you replied just to prove you were right? How often have you reacted on impulse alone? But here's the thing, replying isn't always a sign of strength. Many times, the real power lies in not reacting at all, in realizing that your peace matters more than your need to be right. Once you understand this, you begin to choose your battles more wisely. You stop wasting energy on what you can't control, and focus instead on what truly matters. Your clarity, your calm, your integrity. You free yourself from the belief that everything that hurts you is the world's fault. Not everything that hurts was meant to. And even when it was, you still have the power to decide. Does this deserve to bring me down? Does this deserve my energy? Most of the time, the answer is no. In the end, what disturbs you the most isn't the world. It's the way you've learned to see it. And the good news is, you can start seeing it differently, starting now. Number 4, returning to the essential is the antidote to overwhelm. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by things you don't even know why you're doing? A calendar full of commitments that don't nourish you. A hectic routine that leaves you drained. A constant chase for more control, more answers, more certainty. We live in an era where excess disguises itself as progress, where looking busy is mistaken for being important. But the human mind wasn't built to digest so much at once. Every extra stimulus steals a bit of your presence, your clarity, your peace. It's like trying to drink water from a fountain overflowing with mud. The more you take in, the harder it becomes to see clearly. The Stoic proposal is simple and profound. Return to the essential. Because it's within the essential that stillness lives. Musonius Rufus wrote, "The closer we get to nature, the farther we move from anxiety." And this isn't just about forests and birds. It's about returning to your own nature, that which is simple, true, essential. When you reconnect with what truly matters, an honest gesture, a deep breath, a slow walk, you begin to notice just how intoxicated you were by distractions, expectations, information, tasks, demands. All of it acts like a heavy fog over your mind, blocking you from clearly sensing what you actually need. That's why sometimes you feel exhausted without having done anything physically demanding. It's not your body that's tired. It's your mind, overwhelmed by choices that aren't even yours. Returning to the essential is an act of rebellion against the culture of excess. It's saying no to what distracts you, even when everyone else is saying yes. It's quieting the noise of comparison, compulsive productivity, and external validation. It's looking within and asking yourself, honestly, what is truly indispensable to me? What really makes sense? And then comes the hardest part, letting go. Letting go of what takes up space but doesn't fulfill. Of what seems important but is just noise. Of what shines but doesn't nourish. The essential is subtle. It doesn't scream. It doesn't demand. That's why it's so easy to ignore. But when you find it again, everything shifts. The world stays the same. Your routine might still look familiar, but you begin to inhabit your life differently. You breathe slower. You speak with more intention. You feel time passing, instead of watching it slip away. Want a practical step? Choose one moment of quiet each day. 5 minutes of silence. One task done without distractions. One conversation with your phone off the table. Not because it's poetic, but because it's essential. Overload doesn't stop by itself. It has to be interrupted. Mental detox doesn't start in the mind alone. It starts with your choices. With what you consume. With what you tolerate. With what you believe is essential. And when you discover that you need far less than you thought, a new kind of freedom is born. The freedom of not carrying more than what's yours. In the end, you don't need more stimulation. You need more space. And the essential always fits within the silence. Number 5. You become what you allow in. Have you ever noticed that it's not always what happens that drains you, but what you let into your mind without a filter? The notification that shifts your mood, the comparison that brings you down, the flood of voices telling you what you should have, be, feel, all of it seeps in. And what enters, shapes. And what shapes, stays. We live in an age of mental intoxication. Not from a lack of options, but from an excess of stimuli. Everything blinks, everything calls, everything demands your attention. As if your mind were a public square where anyone can shout. The problem is, without realizing it, you've been letting those voices in. And the more that comes in, the more your mind believes it's lacking. That your life isn't enough. That you're never enough. That's how anxiety is born. Not from reality, but from the illusion that you should be somewhere else, living a different story. And it all begins with what you contemplate. If you spend hours watching perfect lives on social media, you start to think your life means nothing. If all you hear are complaints and criticism, your mind becomes an echo chamber of negativity. If you're surrounded by shallowness, your thinking grows weak. But the opposite is also true. If you contemplate silence, you begin to hear your inner voice. If you read things that expand your view, your vision stretches. If you expose yourself to beauty, a landscape, a melody, a gentle act, your heart remembers there's a different pace to living. Mental detox starts there. Limiting access. You don't have control over everything that happens outside, but you do have the power to decide what comes in. And this isn't just about discipline. It's about self-respect. Pause and ask, what have I been frequently contemplating? Does it strengthen me or weaken me? Does it bring me closer to who I want to be or disconnect me from myself? These questions, when asked with sincerity, can start a real internal reset. The mind, when respected, blooms. When exposed to excess, it gets sick. You don't need to run from the world. You just need to learn to filter what deserves to live inside you. The rule is simple. What disturbs you more than it teaches you doesn't deserve your time. What stirs more craving than peace doesn't deserve your gaze. What feeds the noise, not the inner silence, doesn't deserve space in your day, because your soul is becoming something right now. The question is, what have you been letting it contemplate? Number 6. When the mind breathes, everything becomes clearer. Deep down, the mind doesn't want to know everything. It wants to rest. But in an era of information overload, absolute truths, and 1,000 voices per second, you've been convinced that you need to accumulate more. More data, more certainty, more theories, more answers. And the more you accumulate, the more lost you feel. Not from a lack of content, but from a lack of silence. A toxic mind isn't ignorant. It's saturated. Saturated with doubts, possibilities, and contradictory paths. It's the modern paradox, knowing a lot, yet still not knowing where to go. Because knowing without clarity creates confusion, and knowing without direction disorients. Perseus of Citium once wrote, "Wisdom is not in knowing a lot, but in knowing what's necessary." And that's what's missing today. The courage to filter. Because what sets you free isn't knowing everything. It's discerning what deserves space inside you. True wisdom doesn't accumulate, it selects. It doesn't flaunt, it purifies. And think about it. The lightest moments in your life probably weren't filled with explanations. They were filled with presence. That simple conversation. That sunset. That shared silence that healed you more than any advice ever could. Because the mind, like a lake, only reflects clearly when it's still. The buildup of thoughts, no matter how clever, stirs the water. And where there is constant agitation, there's no vision, only distortion. That's why detoxing the mind isn't about filling it with more information. It's about emptying it of what no longer serves you. Let go of inherited certainties. Question truths that were never yours. Accept that sometimes, not knowing is what brings you closest to true understanding. Clarity is born from reduction. Reduction of noise, of haste, of the need to understand everything. When you stop trying to explain the entire world, you begin to feel the world around you. And that feeling is a kind of knowing no book can teach. It's accessed through silence. So free yourself from the pressure of always being right, always being ready, always being up to date. Learn to rest in the humility of saying, "I don't know," and that's okay. The true wise person isn't the one who collects answers, but the one who cultivates space to listen. Let your mind breathe. Create margins. Make pauses. Lightness isn't born from a full mind, but from a well-tended one. One that filters, that prioritizes, that quiets. In the end, the invitation is simple. Stop trying to do everything. Choose the essential, and trust that in the simplicity of mindful attention lives a wisdom no content in the world can offer. Because a clear mind isn't the one that knows more. It's the one that carries less. Number 7. hurry is the poison of the mind. Have you ever felt like you're always chasing something that never arrives? As if life is always one step ahead, and no matter how fast you run, you can never quite catch up? It's a quiet kind of restlessness. It doesn't scream, but constantly whispers, "You're late." It feels like there's an invisible countdown telling you that you need to fix everything, achieve everything, understand everything, right now. And this silent urgency is one of the greatest sources of suffering today. You wake up already feeling the weight of the day before even leaving bed. You drink your coffee in a rush. You reply to messages on autopilot. You barely breathe, but you keep going. The body obeys, and the overwhelmed mind pretends it's in control, when in fact, it's being dragged by a tide of expectations that were never truly yours. And here comes the wisdom of Zeno of Citium. Time heals what reason cannot. There are pains, confusions, and weariness that won't be solved by logic or by rushing. They dissolve only with time. An agitated mind is impatient. It wants quick answers, a clear path, guarantees. But real life offers steps, processes, and silences. And those silences, which may seem empty, are the ones that most need to be inhabited with awareness. Hurry is the poison of the mind because it pulls you out of the now and throws you into a future that doesn't even exist. You should already be there. You still haven't figured this out. Everyone is ahead of you. These phrases, even if not spoken aloud, are repeated internally like a toxic mantra, and they exhaust you. But what if you started to slow down, not to do less, but to do with presence, to get out of autopilot and step into consciousness, to understand that you don't have to run all the time, that there's value in walking slowly, in observing the journey, in allowing the answers to come when it's time. There is wisdom in not yet. There is beauty in the during. But hurry doesn't let you see that. It blinds you to everything that's not an immediate result. So you live rushing, but never arriving. Doing, but never feeling fulfilled. Thinking, but never finding peace. Mental detox requires reconciliation with time. Understanding that time isn't your enemy. It's your ally. It doesn't demand urgency. It asks for trust. And trust is born when you can stay with what's here, without forcing it to become something else too soon. Start with the basics. Breathe before you respond. Wait a few seconds between one thought and the next. Walk without looking at your phone. Leave blank spaces in your schedule, just to be. These pauses aren't a waste of time. They are the fertile soil of presence. When everything is full, everything becomes too much. And too much makes you sick. But when there's space, time enters. And when time enters, healing begins. You don't need to arrive first. You just need to arrive whole. Respect the natural rhythm of life. You can't control it, but you can walk with it, with calm, with acceptance. Because in the end, the real urgency isn't to do everything fast. It's to stop living in a rush what can only be lived with presence. Number 8. Those who desire too much are never satisfied. Have you ever felt empty, even after achieving what you wanted? You land the job, and then you want recognition. Then comes the raise, followed by the quest for stability. And still, something feels like it's missing. It's as if every goal reached opens up a new void. The cycle of, when I have this, then I'll be happy, never ends. It's like trying to quench your thirst with salt water. Diogenes of Sinope put it bluntly. Nothing is enough for the person to whom enough is too little. The human mind, when not trained to stop, turns every achievement into a starting point for the next craving. And that's exhausting. We live in a society that fuels this restlessness as if it were a virtue. You're told you need to be ambitious. That standing still is failure. That slowing down is being irrelevant. But there's a big difference between growing with purpose and running without direction. And a cluttered mind can't see that difference. It just wants more. More status, more likes, more wins. Like chasing a line on the horizon that moves farther away every time you get close. You pour your energy, your time, your mental health into it. And when you stop, you realize you haven't moved at all. Dissatisfaction doesn't come from lack. It comes from excess. Excess of expectation. Excess of comparison. Excess of hollow goals. It grows when you believe your life needs to look like someone else's. When you forget to see what you have because you're too busy chasing what you don't. So how do you detox from this? By relearning how to be satisfied. Not in the sense of settling, but in the sense of practicing active gratitude. Of looking with presence at what already fills your life. Life isn't small. What's small is the space you give to what you already have. Try this now. Pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself honestly, if I truly valued what I have right now, wouldn't it already be enough? That question opens inner doors no external achievement can touch. Practice sufficiency as an act of resistance. Refuse excess. Question your desires. Embrace simplicity. Discover joy in the little things. A warm cup of coffee enjoyed slowly. A day without pressure. A conversation with no rush. A moment of deep silence. Restless desire will always say, something's missing. But the serene soul replies, nothing is missing. It just hasn't been fully seen. When you learn to recognize enough in what you already have, abundance stops being a distant promise and becomes an inner state. And then something shifts. The mind calms down, the heart slows, and life begins to make sense from the inside out. Not because everything became perfect, but because you stopped seeking outside what was always within. In the end, it's not about wanting less. It's about desiring with awareness. Knowing when to stop. Because maybe, just maybe, the peace you've been chasing is exactly where you are. Number 9. Let go of what was never in your hands. Have you ever noticed how much of your life is spent trying to control the uncontrollable? You plan every detail, try to predict every reaction, anticipate every risk, figure out what others will think, feel, do, and yet, something still slips away. Someone changes their mind. An opportunity doesn't work out. The answer never comes. And anxiety builds up. Not because something went wrong, but because you believed it was your responsibility to hold on to what was never really in your hands. Panetius of Rhodes gave us a precious key. What does not depend on us is indifferent to happiness. This isn't coldness, nor apathy. It's clarity. It's knowing where your reach ends, and where life begins, with all its uncontrollable movements. The cluttered mind tries to control everything. It confuses effort with guarantee. It believes that if you try harder, think more, insist more, you'll manage to avoid pain, mistakes, the unexpected. But this attempt is like trying to hold the wind in your hands. It's exhausting, frustrating, and it takes you away from what can truly be done. Letting go of what isn't up to you is an act of courage. It's accepting that some situations won't have a perfect ending, that some people won't understand you, that some cycles will end the way life chooses, not the way you imagined. And that's okay. How many times have you blamed yourself for something that wasn't even your responsibility? How many sleepless nights have you spent trying to find meaning in someone else's actions? That's the root of much of your mental exhaustion. And the antidote begins with a simple question. Is this really in my hands? If the answer is no, letting go isn't giving up. It's setting yourself free. It's removing from your mind a weight that was never yours to carry. and redirecting your energy to what actually can be changed. Your behavior, your attitude, your interpretation. That is yours. There's a quiet peace in accepting life's flow, in realizing that you're not responsible for everything, and you don't have to be. There's wisdom in preparing, but also in allowing. There's value in trying, but also in letting go. Total control is an illusion fueled by fear, and Stoicism shows that true strength lies in lucid acceptance, not as surrender, but as focus. Because when you let go of what doesn't depend on you, you create more space for what does, for what nourishes, for what can truly bloom. You don't need to carry everything. You don't need to predict everything. You don't need to save anyone. Your freedom begins when you calmly say, "This doesn't belong to me." And you move forward, light, present, whole. In the end, it's simple. If it's not in your hands, then it shouldn't live in your mind. Let go and see what stays, because what remains is what truly belongs to you. Number 10. Self-mastery is freedom disguised as silence. You know that urge to respond immediately when someone provokes you? Or that almost uncontrollable need to explain yourself, justify, prove you're right? Most of us grew up thinking that reacting is a sign of strength, that responding right away shows intelligence, agility, power. But often, it's the opposite. Reacting without thinking is giving up on yourself. It's handing over your center to someone who, at times, doesn't even deserve that space. True strength lives in the pause, in the space between stimulus and response. That's where self-mastery is born. A quiet virtue the Stoics considered one of the noblest. Heracles said it plainly, "He is not free who does not have power over himself." The sentence may sound simple, but it carries the weight of centuries of wisdom. If you don't master your reactions, someone or something always will. And that's not freedom. But many confuse self-mastery with repression. They believe holding back is the same as silencing themselves, that not responding is weakness. But there's a huge difference between silencing yourself and containing yourself. Silencing yourself is ceasing to exist. Containing yourself is existing more intensely, but under your own command. Think of how many times you said something you didn't mean, just because you were angry. How many decisions you made in the heat of emotion, and regretted minutes later? Now imagine how different those situations could have been if you had just taken a deep breath before acting. One deep breath can save a relationship. A conscious silence can prevent a disaster. Self-mastery isn't just useful, it's liberating. When you learn not to react to everything, you begin to notice how much energy you wasted on meaningless things. You stop living in constant alert and begin inhabiting your own calm. You realize you don't need to win every argument to be at peace. You don't need to explain yourself all the time to feel whole. Not every criticism deserves a response. And not every external urgency is an internal emergency. Mental detox necessarily includes silencing automatic reactions, the conscious decision to be less impulsive, and more present, more lucid, more in control. Start small. Practice voluntary response delay. When you feel like exploding, wait. When criticism hits, breathe. When the impulse rises, remember, you are not your first thought. You are the one who chooses what to do with it. Yes, this takes practice. The modern world values speed, instant responses, constant intensity. But what truly builds, what sustains, what heals, comes from depth. And depth only exists where there is pause. So what if self-mastery is actually the highest form of freedom? The freedom not to be carried away by emotional tides, not to be lost in what others say or do. the freedom to act by choice, not by reflex. Because, in the end, those who can't contain themselves will always be contained by someone or something else. And that is definitely not being free. If you've made it this far, I truly want to congratulate you. That shows you're seeking to grow with awareness and intention. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment with the word gratitude, so I'll know you stayed until the end. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, now's the time. There's a lot more content about Stoicism and personal development coming soon. So hit the bell and stay with us. See you in the next video. And until then, remember, the light mind isn't the one that knows more, but the one that carries only the essential.